And joining me in the studio after, I don't know, 20, 30 years? How long has it been, Harold?
Roman, I haven't seen you since the 2nd of August.
Oh, is that all? It feels like Harold Hillman is our executive co-chair from the Sigmoid Curve Consulting Group. And not only is he a lovely guy, he brought food in, which is always a winning start to the day, let me tell you. Let me talk about your year. How have you coped with COVID-19 and the lockdown?
It's been for all of us, it's been a daunting year. I know it's a cliche now, but this will be the most extraordinary year in most of our lives. Even if something else like this, comes about over the next decade or so, 2020 will stand out. And so I've done some reflecting on pace and stamina. This year because it became real for me. I lost my ex-wife in January. You'll recall that my youngest daughter was diagnosed with COVID in March, and that was a scary scenario. She was terrified. I couldn't get to her. I was terrified. The business was impacted significantly, and I had to hold a team together. Many people have been in that, particularly in terms of small businesses, in that same scenario. And it was really coming out of that second that second lockdown here in Auckland when I realized, holy moly, I just feel really tired. And then I went for my annual physical, and my doctor, who has known me for 17 years, he said to me, Harold, your energy is flat. And I didn't quite, it took another person to sort of sit me down and go, hey, you want to be real proactive about this because there's only so much as human beings, energy in, energy out, and managing that. So it really got my attention. And I realized that in addition to these significant stressors that we all have to face into, there's this scenario of uncertainty, vulnerability. Anxiety can be, and it translates into anxiety, and anxiety can be sort of like the slow killer, like they call high blood pressure, the silent killer. People need to be mindful to be more purposeful. So since that visit to see my doc, been listening to more music, getting out, just out and walking about more, spacing between meetings, and most importantly, unplugging from the news.
Oh, yeah, that's hard to do, isn't it?
It is hard to do.
Well, especially in the job that you do and with your focus back on the US, which we'll come to in a moment. But how are you remaining focused in order to help your clients and their business and their leadership? Because everyone's dealing with fallout and job losses and cutbacks.
That's right. Again, I call it being a bit selfish or proactive around making sure that I have enough energy around that. We all got immersed. I think during the first lockdown, we were all on an adrenaline rush and all of that. But now we really do. It's a long game. We're going to be playing this game into 2021. I hadn't taken a break. I had not had a holiday all the way up until September. A number of my clients are the same in that respect. And so it really is, if you're leading people, you do require a certain degree of energy that is compelling as opposed to draining.
Can I just jump in there and ask you, what qualifies a holiday? And I'm asking for selfish reasons. I haven't taken a holiday in 5 years, but I've had long weekends.
Yeah.
Is that the same?
That would be the same. It's just a break,
Okay.
giving your psyche and your body a chance to breathe. Right. And for many of us, that's just been, for a number of us, we would take ourselves offshore. So I typically would have been back to the U.S. twice this year to visit my grandsons. But that hasn't happened. And so we're getting innovative within New Zealand about how to do that. But a number of people, very busy people, have not taken a proper break across the year. And that means unplugging, turning off the phone, turning on music, visiting friends, laughing, infusing yourself with positivity and energy, because it's unlike any other year where we would work our way up until New Year, to the end of the year. And then we take a break in January, such. It's going to be a different holiday mentality this year, because we realize when we come back, we're still in the same game here. So I would just, my advice based on personal experience is be very purposeful about making sure that you have enough energy in associated with positivity, joy, humor, love, all of those kinds of things. Give your psyche and your body a chance to breathe.
I had a long list of things that I was going to achieve through lockdown. I was going to find God. I was going to write 3 books and learn 4 languages. I've done none of that, but you did.
I did. I wrote a book. That's the other thing. I was trying to meet a deadline. So in addition to all of those other things that had happened, I landed it. I landed the book, Empathy. It's called Empathy, Making It Real for Leaders in a Post-COVID World.
Oh, well, tell me more. You can't stop there.
It is, I wanted to demystify empathy. Empathy 20 years ago was punted around like a football, particularly by guys who felt that that word just sort of implied soft or, almost an effeminate word, that notion of empathy. And now it's become very real. It's core to emotional intelligence. And if any other year in our lifetime has not made a valid case for EQ, it would be 2020. I think all of us realize, particularly in terms of leading people through uncertainty, vulnerability is high. There have been significant spikes in anxiety and depression, not only in New Zealand, but around the world. Leaders don't have to be psychotherapists, but leaders need to be more present. And so this whole notion of empathy is really understanding what someone else may be going through. This year, in addition to understanding what someone else might be going through, we've all felt what it means. Sometimes you can understand what another person is going through, but you've never gone through it yourself. So this has been a year where every single person I know has had to walk through the door without a playbook.
Yeah.
And so empathy is if you're a leader, your team will have seen you walk in the same shoes in that sense of where are we going, where are we headed, we're figuring it out one day at a time. They can see you as a human, that you can relate to what they're going through. And so this year has actually been a very connecting year for many, many teams because the leaders now have walked in the shoes of those, particularly those who require workplace flexibility.
Speaking of leaders, of course, they're about to make a big decision in the US. And as soon as you mention US politics here in New Zealand, we get bombarded by people who love certain leaders and hate others as if they care more about than our own politics sometimes. Now, let me put it to you that Donald Trump no one's done more for African Americans than Donald Trump or the LGBT, all that stuff. He said that himself. What's your take on
Unbelievable.
that?
Unbelievable. As an African American, having grown up I grew up at a time when America was still evolving in terms of race relations. And I think the incidents from this, the past few months, provoked by the George Floyd scenario and all others, indicates that racism is still systemic in America. And for Donald Trump, the man who led the birther movement against Barack Obama, who denied that Barack Obama was a citizen, who actually led this campaign to have people believe that. African Americans were so offended by that. Not just African Americans, a number of Americans, but black people in particular. The only president of the United States who was ever required to show his birth certificate was a black man. And that movement was led by the entertainer-in-chief. And it's egregious. It was offensive. And you may recall in 2016, it was 10 days before the election, and he found out from the polls that he actually might win. It was getting tight. So that's when he had this very abrupt conference. It was like a 2-minute press conference where he said, I now believe that Barack Obama is a citizen, is what he said. And then he just walked off. Like that was going to, so when he says that, I think every time he says, I've done more for black people than any other president, than Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. I think that sends. I hope he continues to say that over the next couple of days, because every time he says it, there are 2,000, 3,000 more black people who will go out to the polls. And not just black people, just folks who go. That's crazy. He actually made that comment. He said it also about the LGBT plus community, that he has done more for gay people than anyone else. And the minute he gets into office, he kicks out the T's. So he's done more for the LBGT community, but he kicks out the T's.
Because look, we don't have long. We're seconds out from the news. But what's your impression of Obama at the moment, taking the limelight from Biden? He's almost doing Biden's job.
Well, Barack Obama is so compelling, and I think that the positive, we call it referent power in leadership, and that is when a very powerful person puts their arm around another person and their power transfers to them. And that's really the fact here, is that Obama galvanized people across his 2 election cycles.
Very quick prediction for the outcome?
I truly trust the polls this time. Biden is a man of character. He's a commander-in-chief, as opposed to Trump, who is an entertainer.
Let's find out more on Tuesday. Harold Hillman from the Sigmoid Curve Consulting Group. Oh, it's going to be entertaining stuff. Cheers, mate. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you too, Roman.